Hey, you are watching AliAziz YouTube channel.
Top 25 Angular interview questions and answers.
AliAzizQualityEducation Quality Education channel providing you the job best interview related videos, so don't forget the subscription button.
1. What is Angular? Angular is a TypeScript-based front-end web application framework. It targets both the browser and the server. Angular is one of the most popular frameworks for UI design today, with hundreds of thousands of developers worldwide contributing to its community project. Its compelling features and performance have made it an essential tool for any web developer to have in their toolbox. It is maintained by Google, and its primary function is to design single-page applications. Angular has significant advantages as a framework, while also providing a common architecture for developers to work with. It allows developers to create large, maintainable applications. Complete Angular tutorial. 2. Why were client-side frameworks like Angular introduced? Back in the day, web developers used vanilla.js and jQuery to develop dynamic websites, but, as the logic of one's website grew, the code became more and more tedious to maintain. For applications that use complex logic, developers had to put in extra effort to maintain the separation of concerns for the app. Also, jQuery did not provide facilities for data handling across views. For tackling the above problems, client-side frameworks like Angular came into the picture, which made life easier for the developers by handling the separation of concerns and dividing code into smaller bits of information, in the case of Angular, called components. Client-side frameworks allow one to develop advanced web applications like single-page application. Not that we cannot develop spas using vanilla.js, but by doing so, the development process becomes slower. 3. What are some of the advantages of Angular over other frameworks? Features that are provided out of the box. Angular provides a number of built-in features like routing, state management, RxJS library and HTTP service straight out of the box. This means that one does not need to look for the above stated features separately. They are all provided with Angular. Declarative UI. Angular uses HTML to render the UI of an application. HTML is a declarative language and is much easier to use than JavaScript. Long-term Google support. Google announced long-term support for Angular. This means that Google plans to stick with Angular and further scale up its ecosystem. 4. What are the advantages of Angular over React? Angular vs React. Check out the differences. Angular. React. Angular supports bidirectional data binding as well as mutable data. React only supports unidirectional and immutable data binding. The biggest benefit of Angular is that it enables dependency injection. React allows us to either accomplish it ourselves or with the aid of a third-party library. Angular can be used in both mobile and web development. React can only be used in UI development only. Angular features a wide range of tools, libraries, frameworks, plugins, and so on that make development faster and more fun. In React we can use third-party libraries for any features. Angular uses TypeScript. React uses JavaScript. 5. List out differences between AngularJS and Angular. Check out the differences between AngularJS and Angular below. For more information, click here. Features. AngularJS. Angular. Architecture. AngularJS uses MVC or Model View Controller architecture, where the model contains the business logic. The controller processes information and the view shows the information present in the model. Angular replaces controllers with components. Components are nothing but directives with a predefined template. Language. AngularJS uses JavaScript language, which is a dynamically typed language. Angular uses TypeScript language, which is a statically typed language and is a superset of JavaScript. By using statically typed language, Angular provides better performance while developing larger applications. Mobile support. AngularJS does not provide mobile support. Angular is supported by all popular mobile browsers. Structure. While developing larger applications, the process of maintaining code becomes tedious in the case of AngularJS. In the case of Angular, it is easier to maintain code for larger applications as it provides a better structure. Expression syntax. While developing an AngularJS application, a developer needs to remember the correcting directive for binding an event or a property. Whereas in Angular, property binding is done using attribute and event binding is done using attribute. 6. What are single-page applications, SPA? Single-page applications are web-based applications that only need to be loaded once, with new functionality consisting of only minor changes to the user interface. It does not load new HTML pages to display the content of the new page, but rather generates it dynamically. This is made feasible by JavaScript's ability to alter DOM components on the current page. A single-page application method is speedier, resulting in a more consistent user experience. 7. What are templates in Angular? A template is a kind of HTML that instructs Angular about how to display a component. An Angular HTML template, like conventional HTML, produces a view, or user interface, in the browser, but with far more capabilities. Angular API evaluates an HTML template of a component, creates HTML, and renders it. There are two ways to create a template in an Angular component. Inline template. Linked template. Inline template. The component decorator's template config is used to specify an inline HTML template for a component. The template will be wrapped inside the single or double quotes. 8. What is the scope? In Angular, a scope is an object that refers to the application model. It is a context in which expressions can be executed. These scopes are grouped hierarchically, comparable to the DOM structure of the application. A scope aids in the propagation of various events and the monitoring of expressions. 9. What is data binding in Angular? Data binding is one of the most significant and effective elements for creating communication between the DOM and the component. It makes designing interactive apps easier by reducing the need to worry about data pushing and pulling between the component and the template. There are 4 types of data binding in Angular. Property binding, event binding, string interpolation, two-way data binding. Property binding. One method of data binding is called property binding. In property binding, we connect a DOM element's property to a field that is a declared property in our TypeScript component code. In reality, Angular transforms string interpolation into property binding internally. Event binding. Using event binding, you may respond to DOM events like button clicks and mouse movements. When a DOM event, such as a click, change, or key up, occurs, the component's designated method is called. String interpolation. In order to export data from TypeScript code to an HTML template view, string interpolation is a one-way data binding approach. The data from the component is shown to the view using the template expression enclosed in double curly braces. The value of a component property is added by using string interpolation. 10. What is two-way data binding in Angular? Data sharing between a component class and its template is referred to as two-way data binding. If you alter data in one area, it will immediately reflate at the other end. This happens instantly and automatically, ensuring that the HTML template and TypeScript code are always up to date. Property binding and event binding are coupled in two-way data binding. 11. What are decorators and their types in Angular? Decorators are a fundamental concept in TypeScript, and because Angular heavily relies on TypeScript, decorators have become an important element of Angular as well. Decorators are methods or design patterns that are labeled with a prefix @ symbol and preceded by a class, method, or property. They enable the modification of a service, directive, or filter before it is utilized. A decorator, in essence, provides configuration metadata that specifies how a component, class, or method should be processed, constructed, and used at runtime. Angular includes a number of decorators which attach various types of metadata to classes, allowing the system to understand what all these classes signify and how they should function. Types of decorators. Method decorator. Method decorators, as the name implies, are used to add functionality to the methods defined within our class. Class decorator. Class decorators are the highest level decorators that determine the purpose of the classes. They indicate to Angular that a specific class is a component or module. And the decorator enables us to declare this effect without having to write any code within the class. Parameter decorator. The arguments of your class constructors are decorated using parameter decorators. Property decorator. These are the second most popular types of decorators. They enable us to enhance some of the properties in our classes. 12. What are annotations in Angular? These are language features that are hard-coded. Annotations are merely metadata that is set on a class to reflect the metadata library. When a user annotates a class, the compiler adds an annotations property to the class, saves an annotation array in it, and then attempts to instantiate an object with the same name as the annotation, providing the metadata into the constructor. Annotations in AngularJS are not predefined, therefore we can name them ourselves. 13. What are pure pipes? These are pipelines that only employ pure functions. As a result, a pure pipe does not employ any internal state, and the output remains constant as long as the parameters provided remain constant. Angular calls the pipe only when the parameters being provided change. A single instance of the pure pipe is utilized in all components. 14. What are impure pipes? Angular calls an impure pipe for each change detection cycle, independent of the change in the input fields. For each of these pipes, several pipe instances are produced. These pipes' inputs can be altered. By default, all pipelines are pure. However, as demonstrated below, you can specify impure pipes using the pure property. Example: @pipe name impure pipe pure false / true export class impure pipe. 15. What is pipe transform interface in Angular? An interface used by pipes to accomplish a transformation. Angular calls the transform function with the value of a binding as the first argument and any arguments as the second parameter in list form. This interface is used to implement custom pipes. Example: import pipe transform from @angular/core @pipe name transform pipe. Export class transform pipe implements pipe transform. Transform value unknown args unknown return null. 16. Explain MVVM architecture. MVVM architecture consists of three parts: model, view model, Model contains the structure of an entity. In simple terms, it contains data of an object. View is the visual layer of the application. It displays the data contained inside the model. In Angular terms, this will be the HTML template of a component. View model is an abstract layer of the application. A view model handles the logic of the application. It manages the data of a model and displays it in the view. View and view model are connected with data binding, two-way data binding in this case. Any change in the view model takes a note and changes the appropriate data inside the model. 17. What is change detection, and how does the change detection mechanism work? The process of synchronizing a model with a view is known as change detection. Even when utilizing the ing model to implement two-way binding, which is syntactic sugar on top of a unidirectional flow. Change detection is incredibly fast, but as an app's complexity and the number of components increase, change detection will have to do more and more work. Change detection mechanism moves only ahead and never backward, beginning with the root component and ending with the last component. This is what one-way data flow entails. The tree of components is the architecture of an Angular application. Each component is a child, but the child is not a parent. A $digest loop is no longer required with the one-way flow. 18. What is AOT compilation? What are the advantages of AOT? Every Angular application consists of components and templates that the browser cannot understand. Therefore, all the Angular applications need to be compiled first before running inside the browser. Angular provides two types of compilation. JIT, just-in-time, compilation. AOT, ahead-of-time, compilation. 19. What are HTTP interceptors? Using the HTTP client, interceptors allow us to intercept incoming and outgoing HTTP requests. They are capable of handling both HTTP request and HTTP response. We can edit or update the value of the request by intercepting the HTTP request, and we can perform some specified actions on a specific status code or message by intercepting the answer. 20. What is transpiling in Angular? Transpiling is the process of transforming the source code of one programming language into the source code of another. Typically, in Angular, this implies translating TypeScript to JavaScript. TypeScript, or another language like AS.NET, can be used to develop code for your Angular application, which is subsequently transpiled to JavaScript. This occurs naturally and internally. 21. What is ngoninit? Ngoninit is a lifecycle hook and callback function used by Angular to mark the creation of a component. It accepts no arguments and returns a void type. 22. What does Angular Material means? Angular Material is a user interface component package that enables professionals to create a uniform, appealing, and fully functioning websites, web pages, and web apps. It does this by adhering to contemporary web design concepts such as gentle degradation and browser probability. 23. What exactly is the root estate? Root estate is a root tree. This tree's nodes are aware of the consumed URL segments, retrieved arguments, and processed data. You may use the router service and the root estate property to get the current root estate from anywhere in the application. 24. What are router links? Router link is an anchor tag directive that gives the router authority over those elements, because the navigation routes are set. 25. What are RxJS in Angular? RxJS is an acronym that stands for Reactive Extensions for JavaScript. It is used to enable the use of observables in our JavaScript project, allowing us to do reactive programming. RxJS is utilized in many popular frameworks, including Angular, since it allows us to compose our asynchronous or callback-based code into a sequence of operations executed on a data stream that releases values from a publisher to a subscriber. Other programming languages, such as Java and Python, offer packages that allow them to develop reactive programs utilizing observables. Most of the time, RxJS is used in HTTP calls with Angular. Because HTTP streams are asynchronous data, we can subscribe to them and apply filters to them.